Hello everyone and welcome to the second episode in my CSS animations mini-series. Now in this video we're going to be talking about transforms and transitions. In our introduction we talked a little bit about what transitions are, and we actually created a simple transition to change the font size and color of an H1 when we hover over it. But in this video we're going to be diving deeper into more customizations for the CSS property. In addition, we will be talking about transforms, which, while not necessarily built just for animations, they are widely used across animations to kind of add little effects, because transforms allow us to translate or move elements, rotate, or scale them, make them bigger or smaller. So we're going to go ahead and get started by opening up our index.html and then hitting the Go Live button to start up our live server. Now, as you can see from our previous episode, we had a simple transition so that when you hovered over Hello World, it got bigger and it changed colors. Now, this was achieved simply by creating our H1 properties and then creating the H1 hover properties and adding this transition property, which transition all 0.3 seconds, as a quick recap, means transition all properties, including color and font size, over the course of 0.3 seconds. So they'll linearly change between here to here in 0.3 seconds, which is what allows the smooth transition. Now, another random topic which will be used is transforms. So for example, a transform allows us to edit the element's kind of space. So if I put transform translate, there are a bunch of translates. There's translate 3D, which we're not going to use. There's translate X, Y, and Z, or mainly X and Y, which we would use, or just translate. And let's just say we wanted to move Hello World 100 pixels to the right and 100 pixels down. So I would just put 100 pixels to the right and 100 pixels down. So this is just like, moving the Hello World. And this Hello World is now permanently there. So that's just like a cool thing. Let's say I wanted to rotate it instead. Or let's just say I wanted to scale the Hello World to be 2 times as big. Well, it actually moved to the left, but actually let's pair that with translate 100 pixels, or maybe 300, 400 pixels, 400 pixels. Unless I did that wrong, which I probably did. Let me just quickly look this up. CSS, how to add multiple transform. Do you just add? Okay. Oh, my bad. I got it slightly wrong. I am not supposed to put a comma. All right. So now that should be working. Although I translated it too much. So let's make this 350, maybe 200. There we go. Now we have our Hello World here, and it gets bigger because we scaled it 2 times. Now we don't want to do that. We can also rotate it. Maybe rotate it 10 degrees. And that just puts it on an axis a little bit, which is pretty interesting. So that's just the gist of transform. It allows us, again, to change the being or the position, rotation, and scale in our coordinate axis. If you know any math, like if you've learned, I think it's probably 8th, 7th grade math, you would know about rotations, translations, and scaling. Or, if depending on your level of math, you would learn like all of it by maybe pre-calculus. You would learn all the specifics about scaling and transforming. So let's go ahead and now move on to kind of the next topic after I check these off here. We're going to be now talking about diving deeper into transitions. Now, we already got font size and color. Just by adding this, and then adding the transition, we are able to make it transition between the two. Remember, we don't have to use all. We could just use color 3.3, and then we could use font size 0.3, except I keep adding commas, but I think no, it is a comma this time. Unless, yeah, I keep messing up tiny things here. CSS add multiple, or CSS transitions. If you check out this link right here, W3 Schools, which I actually linked here in the README and in the description, you can kind of get some more context onto how to do this. And I remember Yes. Oh, I forgot the S. There we go. So there we go. So it's now the same. It's now the same thing. And notice, when I make these tiny mistakes here, this is just what happens, especially as a beginner. And I knew that by looking at it, but I know as a beginner looking through something like this, just removing that S and having it not transition can be the most frustrating thing. And as a beginner, something like this would have taken me literally an hour to figure out what was wrong, and I would have gotten so like angry. So, it's always good to kind of run into these with when you're working with someone who maybe has had more experience in the language, so that if you happen to run into the same issue, now you know. The reason why I found that is I was looking here and I just saw width 2S, height 4S, and I referred here and I saw color 0.3 and I saw font size without an S, and I was like, maybe that's it. So it's all about kind of just looking very carefully at your code, to be frank. And this is with all programming languages. All these tiny, tiny typos will make all the difference and cause hours of pain sometimes. So yeah, just watch out for those little mistakes. Anyways, getting a little bit off topic here, let's move on to animating our transforms. So another thing we can do is add a transform of rotate, maybe, of 20 degrees. So this happens when we hover over, and notice it's not animating at all for the rotate because I didn't include it in the transition. So I'm just going to go back to all 0.3s. So now, look at that. It rotates our hello world as we kind of hover over it. And of course, in order to properly position so you can see all of it, I'm just going to add some simple padding. 100 pixels margin top of 100 pixels. And that should give it a good spacing, and then it allows us to do this. So there, we now have our hello world, and it rotates and it gets bigger. That's pretty cool. Like, look, it's shouting at you, hello world. Um, and then, yeah, so like that's the extent of what we have now. There are a couple other things we can add, like we can make our animation actually move differently. Right now it's moving linearly, like it's going from point A to point B in constant, like it's, interpolating, or it's moving at a regular pace, but we can actually make it so that it goes faster at the beginning and slows down at the end, which is called easing, or something like that. And then we can also add a delay, which means when we hover over, it would take 2 seconds to start transitioning. So we hover and nothing happens for 2 seconds and then it goes. Or we could actually separate our properties and duration. So I'm going to start off with the delay as listed here. So to actually add a transition delay, we just go transition dash delay and then maybe 2s. So if we wanted really, we hover, although I guess I made a mistake here. Yes. Yeah, I made a small mistake and I cannot quite figure out where it is. Maybe if I added it there. There we go. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. So basically the gist is the transition's here, but we want this transition when we hover to start after 2 seconds, so we add it here. So now I hover, it's been 2 seconds, and then now it goes. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, if I add it back here, when I do this, it will go there, and then it will, I guess it'll go back immediately. That's odd. I might have to, it might matter with the ordering, I'm not sure. Sometimes CSS does that. Yeah, there we go. It is the ordering 100%. So I guess having the transition delay before transition itself caused that issue, it seems. Yeah, so now we're getting a transition delay all the way through when we hover over it, when we get off it, just like that. And it even has a delay from when it goes from the base state in the corner here as black to actually when it's red in translated. So it adds a delay to everything, basically. Now, another property we can use is separation of the duration and properties themselves. So right now we're using transition all 0.3 seconds, but we can actually split this. As with many properties, like notice I used margin top here. Well, actually, that's just a stripped down version of margin, which this would be the same thing. Margin 0, 0. This is the same thing as this, except this is simpler to write because I only want to specify a top margin. Here I'm specifying a top margin of 100 pixels, a right or a right and left margin of 0, and then a bottom of 0. And actually this would only be a right margin, bottom, and then if I specified another 0, this would be left. So it goes top, right, bottom, left, like kind of north, east, southwest, kind of. But it's much simpler just to do this. And if I omitted all these zeros, this would mean 100 margin or 100 pixels of margin all around. So yeah, that's just how it works. But instead I opted to just use margin top. And then same thing with here. I opted to use transition all 0.3 seconds, but I could use transition property all transition duration 0.3 seconds. And if I save this, it will act exactly like it did before with the 2-second delay, although I'm going to remove this delay because it's a little bit annoying. I'm going to make it 0, so just like that. So that was pretty much separation and delay. And the final topic we have here is easing. Now, again, right now it is by default transition. Timing function is what it's called, is by default linear. And what linear means, if you haven't taken like, I guess, middle school math levels, linear just means that it moves in a straight line or it moves constantly. So notice point A is this hello world like this, and point B is right here with the blue, kind of the blue hello world that's rotated, and it moves from here to here without stopping, or I mean like it moves from there to there just linearly, or kind of all at one speed to say. Now another possible value is ease. Now if I ease, notice it's a little bit hard to tell, but it gets a little bit slower at the end. So let's just say I have the transition duration of 3 seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and hover, and then notice it gets slower at the end. Whereas if I had linear, and I saved that, notice it takes the constant time the whole time. And actually it does seem to take longer when I do this, versus when I do ease, it moves faster at the beginning and slower at the end. Just like that. So it's a tiny, tiny difference, but it does, you know, when you use it correctly, it can make a really, really big kind of impact on the way your website looks, really. So there's a bunch of different ones, and there's ease in, for example, which goes slower at the beginning and then faster at the end. So basically the opposite. There's ease out. There's all kinds of different functions that you can use. If I put a colon here, there's a huge list, although those are all cubic phasers. Let me see, transition, let me see if I can find a list. Yeah, timing. So I guess there are some main ones are going to be ease, linear, ease in, out. Or cubic phaser allows you to define your own values, so I'm assuming that allows you to create your own kind of speed of animation, which is pretty cool. Let's just try one more, ease in, out, and let's go back to document here. So if it goes faster, and then, yeah. So again, they all create slightly different effects. If I lower this back down to 0.5 seconds, notice what happens when I save. It looks like that. Versus if I use linear, it creates an ever slightly different effect. Like this is constant, and then ease in, out, for example, has that kind of faster effect in the middle. So those have just been pretty much our timing functions. And that wraps transitions. So in this video we covered transforms and transitions, two of the fundamental topics for creating CSS animations. In future videos we will be going deeper into kind of how to make more advanced animations. There's something called keyframes, which allows us to kind of build crazy animations like flying in from the left or fading in, you know, all kinds of things that are more advanced than what we've made so far. And we can make these animations trigger without us having to hover over a text. You know, there's many other triggers that we can create for these animations. So if you want to see more videos like this, you can check out the playlist, which is linked in the description, where I'm uploading daily. If you enjoyed the video, please consider giving it a thumbs up, subscribe and hit the bell icon for notifications whenever I post new videos. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.